Good evening to you. Thank you for being here with us on From the South. My name is Regan Devines. Here are this evening's headlines. Thousands take to the streets in Venezuela for the final campaign rallies ahead of Sunday's parliamentary elections. As the opposition protests, Ecuador's National Assembly votes to remove term limits, but not for President Correa. And as Britain begins airstrikes in Syria, citizens there react. The details on these and other stories right now. The electoral campaign comes to an end this midnight in Venezuela. The Great Patriotic Poll called its followers for a big rally in the capital, Caracas. President Nicolas Maduro attended the march in one of the main streets of the city, Bolivar Avenue, while the opposition gathered in another avenue in eastern Caracas. 19.5 million Venezuelans will have to choose 167 new members of the National Assembly in over 40,000 polling stations nationwide. Here is Telesuro's Isabel Finbo with more.
Supporters of Venezuela's Socialist Party took to the streets of Caracas in their thousands to celebrate the end of campaigning.
Of course, December 6th. For Chavez, for us, for Venezuela.
100% left. I'm going to vote PSUV. We are going to win. Up to now, we have won 18 out of 19 elections, and we are going to continue like this.
The mood was already jubilant among government supporters, who after hard months of canvassing, now only have to wait days to find out the results.
The people are excited. The people want this. The people are going to go out on Sunday and vote and nothing more. For the revolution, for Chavez.
The CAC means that this is a revolutionary process. I put my hand on my heart and feel it because I always continue to be for the left.
Well, the people behind me are all at the end of campaign rally, marching down towards Plaza Bolivar, where there's going to be a great party, waiting for Sunday. This is the end of campaign.
Marches from around the city converge here in Avenida Bolivar. Party leaders hope to galvanise support to guarantee a majority in Parliament and continue with their socialist programmes. Isabel Finbo, Telesur, Caracas.
Several international electoral missions are in Venezuela to accompany the poll on Sunday. The former Spanish Prime Minister José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero is one of the high-profile international guests invited by the government. The regional bodies, UNASUR and CELAC, have also sent teams, and the opposition parties have invited their own observers. Zapatero made clear that he would respect the country's sovereignty.
My approach to this electoral process will be first of all a humble one. I believe that democracy means not giving lectures. Second, I will respect the sovereignty of the Venezuelan people. Third, I will help so the electoral journey responds to the best democratic principles of transparency and of guarantees.
This deluge of observers expresses the immense respect and solidarity of very serious and very responsible political leaders who have come to our country to accompany the electoral process with no intention to interfere, without disrespect, without abuse, and without manipulation, as is the case of some others who are pushing in.
For the president of the Venezuelan National Electoral Council, Tibisay Lucena, only the will of the people should dictate the results of the election.
The strengths of our electoral systems and institutions show that we do not require certification that reduces the democracies of our country and the adoption of private, public, national or international corporations. The only qualification to which we must be submitted is the sovereign will of the people.
Ecuador's National Assembly has just voted on ending presidential term limits by a vote of 100 to 8 with one abstention. However, a provision in the constitutional amendment means that this would only all apply from after the 2017 elections, which means that incumbent President Rafael Correa cannot run for re-election. The provision was his own suggestion as a way of approving his disinterest in holding on to power. Opposition forces were reportedly attacking the police with rocks and sticks outside the assembly building during the vote. They believe that the win for the ruling party would mean unlimited term limits for Correa. The Colombian Senate has approved a bill which will call for a referendum to implement a final peace agreement between the government and FARC guerrillas. The bill approved includes a clause which makes it mandatory for the government to provide financial backing for both the yes and no campaigns in order to guarantee the fairness of the process. At least 4.5 million Colombians will have to vote to make the referendum valid. A day after the Speaker of Brazil's Congress accepted a request to open impeachment proceedings against President Dilma Rousseff, accusations have been flying furiously between the two sides. The Speaker, Eduardo Cunha, accused President Rousseff of lying to the nation when she expressed indignation on Wednesday at the suggestion that she had tried to arrange a deal to avoid the impeachment procedures. Cunha himself faces possible impeachment as the Ethics Committee in Congress investigates corruption charges against him.
I am convinced that a coup like this will never pass the plenary. First, they don't have enough votes.
Members of the governing Workers' Party, or PT, have long accused opposition leaders of seeking to stage a parliamentary coup against President Rousseff. But some think this latest impeachment move has little chance of success.
I am convinced that a coup like this will never pass the plenary. First, they don't have enough votes. Secondly, it will take a lot of time to reach the stage of vote. People ask me how I think the vote will go. I say, calm down, this is a coup so full of illegalities.
A judge in El Salvador has sent the former president, Francisco Flores, to prison to face trial on charges of money laundering and embezzlement. Flores is accused of misappropriating $15 million of public funds donated by Taiwan while he was president between 1999 and the year 2004. Prosecutors say Flores kept $5 million for himself and diverted the other $10 million via Costa Rica to an account of his arena party. Taiwan had given the money to reconstruction efforts after El Salvador was hit by 2 earthquakes, killing over 900 people. Jovino Novoa, who is a former opposition senator in Chile and collaborator of dictator Augusto Pinochet, has been sentenced to 3 years of probation for fraud. Novoa is the first to be convicted in a notorious case linked to illegal campaign financing. Novoa will also have to pay back half of the $5,000 in damages and a $4,000 fine. Lori Berenson, the New Yorker who spent 20 years in jail in Peru for belonging to the Tupac Amaru revolutionary movement, has been expelled from the country. Berenson, now 46, was first accused of taking part in a failed plan to attack the Peruvian Congress back in 1995. She was never found guilty of taking part in violent acts, but she was convicted for providing support to the rebel group. A military tribunal had initially sentenced her to life in prison, but due to pressure from her parents, human rights groups and the US government, she was retried in a civilian court and her sentence was reduced. In Mexico, the debate about whether marijuana should be legalized continues. Clayton Khan reports.
The debate over to legalize marijuana in Mexico continues after government officials announced yesterday plans to organize a series of forums in January over the issue. Yet Mexico's President Enrique Peña Nieto continues to clearly state his position, which is stiff opposition to legalization. In a speech yesterday, the president said that his own children asked him if they would be able to consume marijuana in his presence. Yet Peña Nieto argues that he is not willing to sacrifice children's health health in exchange to fight organized crime. The national debate kicked off about a month ago when the country's Supreme Court ruled in favor of 4 plaintiffs that it was unconstitutional to maintain marijuana illegal, and that the 4 persons or people which make up a pro-legalization group would have the right to cultivate and consume marijuana for personal use. Since then, more than 50 other organizations are fighting for the same rights in the courts. Many pro-legalization supporters argue that the scientific, health, and even social evidence suggests that the personal consumption of marijuana or the drug produces relatively minor impacts, and ultimately its regulation will produce a major blow to organized crime, which, as we know, has been part of Mexico's chronic corruption and violence. Now, the government announced that it would set up a digital platform to allow for the public debate to continue, as well as organize at least 5 regional forums, including the participation of lawmakers, academics, scientists, as well as members from civil society organizations to argue their points. This is Clayton Kahn reporting for Telesur here in Mexico City.
Tens of thousands of St. Lucians are expected to finally have access to reliable and safe supply of drinking water following the launch of 2 milestone projects on the Caribbean island. The projects cost $14.8 million and follow a 2011 gender assessment, which concluded that women and children without basic amenities spend an inordinate amount of time sourcing and fetching water. Telesur's Alison Kentish has more in this report.
Officials of St. Lucia's loan water company WASCO, along with representatives of the Caribbean Development Bank, have broken ground on 2 projects they say will provide a reliable and climate-resilient water supply to tens of thousands of nationals. Residents are hoping the John Compton Dam Rehabilitation Project and the Vieux Fort Water Supply Redevelopment Project will finally end the acute water shortages plaguing the country.
I mean, for now, in 2016, you know, like people have water once a day or once a month free. I mean, that's like really backward. You know, I think that's backward for our country, you know, that have like cars, the latest cars and all of that. I think like basic things like water, you know, 1 month, you know, I mean, that's not good.
Citizens like Charles James say access to water is a fundamental human right and one that every national should enjoy in 2015.
People struggling for water, so if they fix it up, if they 5,000 struggling for water, when they fix it up, about 20,000 will get water, so it will be a good idea for people to be able to wash their clothes, do what they want to do.
The island's main dam usually supplies residents with 10 million gallons of water every month. However, following natural disasters, the dam's capacity cuts to half. Officials of the Caribbean Development Bank say the rehabilitation works are essential, as the lack of a reliable water supply could have ramifications for the economic and social infrastructure of St. Lucia. Alison Kentish, Telesur, St. Lucia.
Here's a look at what's coming up. The gun control debate continues in the U.S. as the motive behind the mass shooting in California is still unknown. This story and more next.
Discover Latin America and the world in our programs. Telesur Reports, The Real USA, the stories behind the tweets. Ataman, Lives, Know Your Body, Open Files. Exposing the conflicts that affect our people. Compelling personal stories and the most controversial events. See it all on telesurtv.net in English. Telesur. Wherever the news, you'll be there.
Day by day, they're in the street with one mission: change the world through their actions. This is a different type of program, a conversation. The perspective you won't find in traditional media can be found on The Laura Flanders Show. Watch it on telesurtv.net/English. Telesur, wherever the news, you'll be there.
We need to understand the world we live in. We require news with critical points of view, thorough analysis, and social commitment. This information is vital to think, to understand, and to change. The world demands a new perspective. telesurtv.net/English. Wherever the news, you'll be there.
US President Barack Obama said that it's just too easy for mass shootings, such as in Wednesday's San Bernardino, California, to take place. The president continues to push for gun control regulations in the face of powerful pro-gun campaigners. The two persons responsible for the shooting died in an exchange of fire with police officers. They were 28-year-old Syed Rizwan Farouk and 27-year-old Tashfeen Malik, one man and one woman. Police are yet to determine the motive behind the shootings.
Here at the scene,
As more details of the shooting in San Bernardino, California are revealed, citizens continue to ask for action on gun safety laws in a nation where 31% of the world's mass shootings take place. Bianca Perez has those details.
Many Republican politicians turned to prayer as their reaction to the San Bernardino shooting. The newspaper, the Daily News, published the most shared newspaper cover on social media with the headline, "God isn't fixing this." Citizens agree with this and demand action.
I'm very disappointed in the leadership in our country and that nothing's being done about gun control and all this talk about terrorism. We have it right here in our country. We've had it for decades in our country and we're doing nothing about it.
There needs to be tighter control on guns because all it takes is one person having a bad day or with mental instability who has access to a gun.
After the mass shooting in San Bernardino, where 14 citizens died and 21 were injured, President Obama once again admitted to his government's inability to act and made his now familiar speech pleading for more gun control.
It's going to be important for all of us, including our legislatures, to see what we can do to make sure that when individuals decide that they want to do somebody harm, we're making it a little harder for them to do it. Because right now it's just too easy.
Citizens in the U.S. possess more firearms than those of any other country in the world, a fact which concerns many who see a lack of action from the government. A report by Open Secrets Database shows that in 2014, the National Rifle Association, NRA, gave over $812,000 to 222 elected officials in the country.
It is pretty evident that we need to have gun control. If you look at the members of Congress who receive funding for their campaigns by the NRA, and it's evident why we have not had gun control.
The shooting in San Bernardino, California left the largest number of victims in past years after the Sandy Hook Elementary shooting in 2012, and it is the first one with more than one shooter since the Columbine shooting in 1999. Bianca Perez, Telesur, Washington, D.C.
Syrian fighters on the ground say that Britain's decision to join the airstrikes against Daesh is of no concern to them, adding that the 50-member coalition has been conducting airstrikes to no effect. For close to 5 years, Syria has been knee-deep in civil war, which all began as an uprising against President Bashar al-Assad and his regime. Western powers are adamant that Assad's fall from power can help alleviate the country's problems. However, the situation there is becoming increasingly volatile, and Russia's support of Assad has complicated it further. Egypt has opened the Rafah border crossing for 2 days to permit the travel of stranded Palestinians in both directions. More on this with Noah Harazim. Moving on now, we'll try to get you that story later on. Here now is a brief look at other news stories around the world.
Political analysts in Spain believe that Spain's ruling party may win the upcoming December 20th parliamentary elections, yet may not attain an absolute majority, which will make governance a challenging task. It is believed that many are tired of Prime Minister Rajoy's leadership and his handling of the economic crisis and corruption scandals.
Their support comes, a lot of it comes from former Popular Party voters that are very unhappy with the handling of corruption scandals, with the handling of the crisis, with the leadership of Rajoy. So a lot of their support comes from former Popular Party voters, but they are also getting some support from former socialist supporters and for people that were previously apolitical or didn't participate in polls or newcomers to the political to the election.
Danes have voted in a referendum on whether or not to accept EU integration. The governing party has been urging citizens to vote yes to integration. However, the Danish People's Party, the second biggest party in parliament, has voted no. They do not wish to be part of the regional effort to tackle the refugee crisis. And scientists in the UK have created the world's first sonic tractor beams, which they believe can eventually be used in the field of medicine for levitating things inside the human body, like kidney stones, blood clots, or using tiny scissors that could be controlled from the outside without any incision. The device allows the manipulation of small spherical objects in midair without physical contact.
FIFA's acting president, Issa Hayatou, says that the organization is ready to participate fully with investigators from the U.S. Department of Justice. This as FIFA is about to begin a full process of reform amid corruption scandals that rocked the football world this year. The sporting body has just approved a series of measures aimed at cleaning up the organization, such as reducing the power of the executive committee, as well as the separation of political and management roles, which are currently both held by the executive committee. And finally this evening, fashion designs have been created ahead of the release of the latest Star Wars film for charity. Several designers were commissioned to come up with the works, which are custom-made, one-of-a-kind creations. The film Star Wars The Force Awakens is set to be released on December 14th. It will focus on Han Solo and his allies as they face a new threat from the evil Kylo Ren and his army of stormtroopers. You can join us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook for more on these and other stories. And for extensive coverage of developing stories, please visit our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, my name is Reagan Devines. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.